Hey everyone, welcome to Untamed and Prosperous. I'm Dr. Natasha Nelson, your life doctor. So today is part 3 out of the 6-part nutrition series. So much that happens about nutrition, so much information. My intention for you is to give you a solid foundation that you can make the best choices for health, for yourself, for your family, about how to nourish and fuel your body for whatever it is you need. So of course, the disclaimer, I am not your physician. And so take the information, talk to your doctor, and see what's, make the best decisions, blah, blah, blah. That kind of stuff, right? So part 1, we talked about the food groups. Part 2, we talked about the enzymes. And both of those, I'm not going to go into them here. You can go back to the previous episodes. And part 2, we talked about poop plaque, right? Ew, all the food and undigested stuff that gets stuck in your intestines. And today I want to talk about, we're going to a little bit deeper dive into that poop plaque because you need to understand the health consequences of it. So I said, all right, you have poop plaque that develops. You have the body interferes with your ability to absorb nutrition. But I want to take a step back to remember food that has been chemically altered to give it a longer shelf life. Well, that's what chemical engineers do, right? They give food a shelf life. They also give food, flavors and colors and a whole host of things that they do to food to make it appealing, to make it look good, to make it taste good. Some of those, a lot of those are chemicals that you probably wouldn't choose to eat if you actually knew what they were. So when you are reading a nutrition label, what is it that you're looking at? Most people look at a food label and they go, okay, well, how many grams of protein, maybe how many grams of fat? Well, 2 things. One, you have to look at, well, how large is a serving and how many servings in the container, because an ice cream container, right, a little one, is actually 4 servings. So you have to multiply everything by 4 because nobody really eats 1 serving, right? So, but that's not the whole story. The whole story on the food label is the part below the fine print that says other ingredients. That's what really tells the story about what it is you're eating. Other ingredients. I'm not going to list them. There are books, and there's a book that has the 12,000 most common used chemicals in food and products, right? So I'm not going to go through that. So here's what I want you to think about. If you can read easily those words, and now I want you to think about, could a 5-year-old read the label, those words? So if a 5-year-old is reading it and it says, like milk and cream and sugar, okay. And if you can't read the label and the ingredients, and a 5-year-old can't, you may want to look it up and see if it's something you actually want to put in your body. Because back to the body is going to absorb everything you put in it. So yes, all the nourishment, but also all the chemicals. Everything breaks down and will be absorbed from the small intestines. Primarily it's where the nutrition, and in the large intestines is where water is reabsorbed. So that's what these little green dots. The green dots are all of the breakdown of the food. It gets absorbed into the blood vessels, which is why it's red. The blood vessels take the nourishment to every single part, every organ, every tissue, every cell. And from your toe to your brain, everything is from the circulatory system. So now I want you to think about if your body is also absorbing the chemicals. What do those chemicals do? Well, they also travel to all the parts in your body. Okay, well, what does that do? Well, your blood vessels are connected to your cells. Now remember in part 1, I said lipids, oils, they are so vital to our health. And now I'll show you why. So I want you to think about a cell. We have 300 trillion cells in our body. This is one. So you have one cell, and that's your DNA, okay? Well, I want you to think about a cell, and I'm going to give you a visual of a grape. So if you are holding a grape, there's the grape skin. And the grape skin is different from the inside. Well, your cells have a coating, a skin on it as well. And it is made up of all of these lipids that we get in the fats that we eat, the avocados, the nuts, right? So if you look up in the anatomy and physiology books, it's called a phospholipid bilayer. So the word lipid is in there. Bi means two. So the layer, it's 2 layers of lipids, right? That makes the grape skin. Every cell needs that because that's what makes cells nice and plump like fat grapes, right? Keeps all the water in, keeps all the other stuff in there too. A cell has our DNA, it has mitochondria, a lot of stuff in there. It needs to stay inside the cell. And that's how it stays hydrated, because our cells need water, need all of it inside. And the skin keeps it in. It also acts as a barrier, so it does help to keep as much of the chemicals out of the cells as best as it can. But if you are not getting a high quality and eating enough of these oils, then you start getting holes along the membrane of the cell. So back to your grape. Remember, if you're holding a grape and you stick pins in it, it's going to create holes where then if you squish it, the water will leak out, right? So then you have the water from inside the cell that leaks out. You also get all the chemicals that you've been ingesting that's in the food that has a shelf life, the food with chemicals, the foods that look good and maybe taste good or not good, but you're eating them. That gets into the cell. And what happens when those chemicals get into the cell? Well, the best case scenario would be that that cell dies and it's not an issue, your body flushes it out. However, a lot of those chemicals cause damage. They cause damage to the DNA. Okay? So once you cause damage to the DNA, well, that would be a cancerous cell. And hopefully our immune system is so strong because we're getting enough protein and sleep and all the other things for our immune system that our body will go through and get rid of them. It's like little, I'm going to date myself here. It's like Pac-Man. Remember? Pac-Man will go through, find the damaged cell, destroy it, and get rid of it. However, if your immune system is not strong enough to do that, a damaged cell will multiply and create another damaged cell, and another damaged cell, and another damaged cell. And when you start getting all of these clumps of damaged cells in the body, that's a tumor. That's cancerous. Whether it's benign or malignant is not the point. The point is they're damaged cells that are not functioning properly. And all of this is to say, this is why the food that you eat matters more than just the nutrition value for fuel. That's important, but it's so much more than that. This is why reading the labels is so important to understand what you are putting in your body and why it matters. Now, it's not really possible to eat perfect with no chemicals and no additives and no preservatives and no artificial colors and flavors and dyes, and it's really, really difficult, probably impossible. However, having the information about why it's important will actually help you understand the value of buying food that's organic, the value of eating food in its most natural state that hasn't been processed. Because I'm a real true believer that if you understand why it matters, it'll help you make better decisions over the long term. And it's like, oh, that's why I'm doing it. Okay, so this is why. So back to this though, all the chemicals that get into your circulatory system can cause problems everywhere. Because when you have all these things floating around and it triggers your immune system, you can have autoimmune responses, you can have hyperimmune reactions, food allergies, sensitivities comes from food particles. It's one of the reasons how you develop food allergies later on. It's from your body's immune system not able to tolerate foods in the system. But it also does a lot of other things, everything from, if you look at every illness and every disease, really at the root, there's some form of inflammation. And inflammation really is triggered when there are things in our circulatory system that aren't supposed to be there, or there's too much of it. And so inflammation is your immune system's response and floods the system with, doing everything that it's chemically supposed to do. But inflammation happens, and that's at the root of everything as the body breaks down at the cellular level. So I'm going to talk more about that in the next section. So today was part 3 out of the 6-part series on nutrition and really integrative and functional nutrition. So I hope that this makes sense. I know it's really technical, which is why I'm trying to break it down to help it make sense for you. So if this was helpful, please leave me a question or a comment or share it or like it. And then go back as often as you want and listen to all the different parts of this series to really gather all the information as best as you can, okay? So I'm Dr. Natasha Nelson, and until next time, live life untamed.